Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 142, Pete Mohr. From operator to owner, planning for the unplanned. What if life happens? Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable from the trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another The Builders. Today, we are joined by Pete Mohr, more or less.
More or less.
Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Matt. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
I threw myself off by saying more or less. Anyway, so Pete is, he's got a lot to talk about. We can dig into because he's done a lot of different businesses. He just named off like a half a dozen different things he's done over the years. So
I'm getting older, Matt.
You're getting older. Well, you look good. Good.
Thanks, man.
So what we do first on the Builders is we like to, especially when it's your first time on, so we like to talk a little bit about your story or have you talk about it.
Sure.
And your origin story, where you come from, where, how you ended up being an entrepreneur, why you did that, who influenced you, why do you put yourself through this?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Man, I don't think I'd ever want to do anything else. And I'm so proud and happy and all of that stuff about being a lifelong entrepreneur. I started young, man, like that typical story. I really did. My folks, first of all, I'm Canadian. I live in a beautiful small town called Elora, which is about an hour outside of Toronto. And we run a couple of shoe stores called Shoetopia still. And I spend most of my time coaching with my coaching business here called Simplifying Entrepreneurship. But, taking it back to those early days, and I won't spend the whole time talking about it, but, I did start young. I started about 13, 14, making crafts with my mom. She sold crafts to craft stores, and I had a couple of little ones that I made, and, she made me pedal my stuff along with her as we rolled around, and I was cutting lawns and doing all that kind of stuff in the summers and shoveling snow and making a buck wherever I could. Through university, did the same sort of thing, just turned it into a bit more of a landscaping business through university. And I got out of university. I took a business degree in university. And I got out of university, worked for my best friend's, or my dad's best friend. His name is Peter as well, who I'm named after, actually. And it's the only full-time job after university that I really ever worked at. And I was there about 6 months, and I said, you know what? This isn't for me. I got to go do my own thing. That was 1994.
What was it? It was just like you did.
What was I doing? I was selling heavy.
Why wasn't it for you?
Because I just had to do my own thing, and I liked the business. It's a great business. Still exists today. It's called Geosynthetic Systems in the Ottawa area, and he doesn't own it anymore. He's sold it since, but it was a great business, heavy landscaping stuff. I love that whole industry. My dad was in heavy construction for years. Like, I know it intimately, and it excites me and all that stuff. What didn't excite me was working for someone else. And, at that early age, I was like, I just think I need to be my own boss. So I was 23 at the time. And it's interesting because the first business that I bought, my first formal business, let's call it, full-time business, was a franchise. And it was a bathroom renovation company. And it was called Surface Doctor at the time. Long story short, we defranchised it because it was through a whole bunch of rigmarole and 3 different franchisors over the course of 5 years. So it was, one of those sort of crazy franchise nightmares. But at the same time, the business was good. And I think there was 200 and some sold over that course of 5 years. And I think 20 of us were still lasting at the end of it. And so I changed the name to Surface Medic. It still goes on today, almost 30 years later. It's doing well. When I sold it about 13 years ago, we were in about 1,000 bathrooms a year. So, I had multiple trucks on the road. We're, spraying bathtubs, doing bathtub liners and wall systems and spraying kitchens and all sorts of different things, mostly for landlords and homeowners as well. But at the same time as I had that, I came across another franchise, and it was called Sani Service, and we cleaned sinks, toilets, and urinals for about. I took over a fledgling business. It had about 30 customers. We sold it 10 years later. When we 10 times it, we had about 300 customers when we sold it. Wow. And for all those listeners out there, I have cleaned more urinals than you could ever imagine in your entire lifetime. And it wasn't the most glamorous of jobs, what we did. We got on our hands and knees and we sanitized sinks, toilets, and urinals. And we looked after feminine napkin bins, and we did air fresheners and hand soaps and paper products and toilet paper and all that kind of stuff.
Somebody's got to do all that, right?
Yeah. And you know what? It was a good business. And we did well with it. And when we sold it, we did well on the sale. And so not every business is something that you are, if you're in business and interested in business, it's not always about what you do. It's like, is this going to be the way that I can look at my future? When I'm looking at the future, I'm thinking about how I want to live with my family and all the different things that I want out of my life, because it's my feeling that most business owners get into business for themselves because they have different dreams of a different life than is being presented to them by whomever they're working for. So, and that was basically where I was at that time back, 29 years ago, saying
when you first went into it, were you thinking about selling it right away off the bat, or is it?
No, not off the bat. It's like, hey, are these two good businesses that I can run and make some good money? And we had a young family, and, I want to support my family and do well with it and grow the business and maybe someday down the road exit. And then I went back to university in 2007, took an executive MBA. And at the time I went in, I decided that I wanted to have sold both of those businesses by 2009 and move on to something different, which I did. Sold both of them, successful exits. Became a business broker, helping people buy and sell businesses through that transition. And that's how I found Shoetopia, the first shoe store that I have. And I still own it 13 years later. Just came from there before this show, actually. I don't work in the shoe store very much anymore, about a day a week or so between the two shoe stores. I spend most of my time coaching these days, but that's kind of how I got to where I got now. And, one of the main things, Matt, that I coach to is this idea that you shouldn't have to work in your business every single day. It's so interesting. We just experienced, as we're recording here in Canada, it was our Thanksgiving weekend this past weekend, which is a little earlier than yours. And the former owner who I bought it, the original store off of 13 years ago, came in my store this past weekend, and I saw him. I happened to be working on the Saturday covering, because we had a bunch of people off. And like I said, I don't work in the stores often, but when I'm still the owner, so when I'm needed, I'm there. And Bill came in and he said, "Peter, I haven't seen you in a long time." I said, "No, I haven't seen you in a long time, Bill." And he said, Are you in much? Because he goes, "I've stopped in a few times." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't really work a whole lot in my stores anymore. I've got a good team. I've got good process in place. We've got things set up and rolling in a good way that I'm here when I'm needed." And he goes, "When I used to work here with Gloria," who was his wife at the time, he goes, "we worked every single hour the store was open." And I'm going, "I know." And that's why I'm thinking to myself, I know you did, and that's why I don't ever want to do that. So that's why I believe that you become a business owner because even if you love what you do, you shouldn't be tied to it for eternity, 80 hours a week, making every single decision, making every single hire, making every single purchase order, all of this kind of stuff, which is really interesting because a lot of us have to do that, Matt, when we get going, right? You got to maybe aren't really deep pocketed with all kinds of cash. You got to just kind of bite it and get in there and do what you got to do. But there comes a time in the business where it's like, hey, if things are rolling well and you've done a good job getting the startup over, now it's like, okay, once the startup is over, we get habitualized into making all the decisions, but we don't need to anymore.
Yeah. Kind of in that I'm somewhere in a long phase of with my agency, the same thing. It's, I just took a long weekend, actually 4 days away. It's third long weekend this year. And awesome. I have a team that watched things and only had one or two fires I had to handle. But it's progress. But I have that dream too, is someday where what the goal is to eventually be able to take more and more time and do other things in the business so we can.
And not everybody wants that. some people just love to do what they do, and it's part of who they are and all that kind of stuff. And if that's you, that's good. That's fine. But think of if you ever do get sick, or if you ever do need to take a leave of absence in any given case, do you have people cross-trained? Do you have people ready to make the decisions in your absence? Not because you want to leave, maybe, because maybe you don't, but if you have to leave, that's a different issue.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, because I love what I do. I'm web
Exactly.
design
So do I.
development. This is my thing. But right, I want to be in a position if something does happen that I have people I can rely on that can watch the ship and
Yeah.
take care of things while I'm gone. I can trust them with my clients and
For sure.
all that good stuff.
I'll give you a quick example. In the last 12 months, I've lost both of my parents.
Oh my gosh.
And
Sorry to hear that.
nobody knows when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's never fun. But, going through prior to my father's passing last October, as we're recording here, literally a year and a week ago. But prior to that, we knew he had a cancer, and I spent probably about 60 days back where they live, on it, like go back for 4 or 5 days every month. And then through the time that he passed and everything, I was out of my business for probably 60 days in that year up till he passed. And then this year, my mom passed. And haven't been gone that much because we didn't really know she was going to pass. At this time, she wasn't doing that great, but I've been making regular trips back. They live 5 hours away. Regular trips back to help my mom out over after my dad passed, and sell the house and do a whole bunch of stuff with my sister and be available for her. And then her passing here about 4 weeks ago, and then settling that up. All of that stuff you can't plan for. And whether a loss of a loved one or a family member, or whether it's your own sickness or illness, I was out of my business over the last 2 years more than I ever have been in 29 years of being a business owner. And when I came back after 3 weeks because we had gone on a vacation, we took a 10-day vacation out to see my kids out west. And then I came back and I immediately had to go back to be with my mom for the last week that she was alive, and then a week or so after she had passed. And I was out of my business for give or take 3 weeks. And when I got back, and at the same time, we had lost a key member of our team as well, one of the top 3 people in our team. And I came back to the top 2 that are still left, been with me a long time and do a great job. And I said, "What do you need from me?" And they said, "Nothing. We're good. We got it covered." And I mean, that's what I want for my clients, Matt. That's what I want for other business owners, so that you can get to a point down the road where if you need to go, you don't have to worry. Things are getting tackled. Things are getting done. Maybe not 100% of how you would do it, but even if they're at an 80% level, that's good enough for in times of need.
Right. I was just looking at, I just had somebody on this, like the story was very similar to hers, Amy Foley, I believe it was. Where she had a situation. She was like gone for like 2 years.
Yeah.
I think it was her husband got sick or something along those lines. If I remember, I'm probably not going to remember perfect, but it was the same situation where she came back and she, like, no one missed her.
Yeah.
And I think that's an ideal. That's where you want to be. If you're healthy, everything's going great. But this is a really, really powerful reason to want to get there. It's not so much that, I can go on vacation, I can do it. But when something happens with your family or something happens like what we're talking about here, my condolences, by the way. It's
thanks.
2 in a past year. It's terrible.
These things aren't easy, but they're real.
Yeah.
And they're real is because as business owners, it's sort of yin and yang. We're attached to the hip with our businesses and our lives and our personal lives and our relationships, both within and outside of the business. And we need to be able to carve up some time. So if you're making every single little decision, if you're making every single little hire, if you're making every single little payment, if you're making every single little sale, or a part of each of those things, then you got some work to do. And you know what? It takes some time. Yeah. It takes some time to get things running on rails like this. And it takes some time to get your head around the fact that I need to get out of being a part of every decision. And I've got sort of a lot of different sayings. One of the sayings that I use a lot is that decisions need to be made at the lowest possible level of your organization. And I'll say it again because I think it needs to sink in a little bit. Decisions need to be made at the lowest level of your organization every single time. And we own some shoe stores, right? So if I'll use this example. If you bought a pair of shoes at Shoetopia, or maybe your wife came in and bought a pair of shoes for you at Shoetopia, and they're a size 11 because she thought you took a size 11, and you take a size 10. Well, if you
12.
came back and said, I need to flip this out, and I need to, get a size 10, not a size 11, then what do we do here? Well, if my team said, well, I can't really do that. Let me go get the assistant manager. And she does the returns. And then the assistant manager wasn't available and you were waiting around. And then you said, hey, I just really need a change for, a size here. It's not a really big deal. And then that person said, oh, well, maybe I'll go get the manager and see if she can help you because I really can't do that. And then goes get the manager, and the manager said, you know what? Peter's the owner. He's not in today, and we don't do exchanges unless Peter's around. So why don't you come back on Saturday? Because he's going to be here on Saturday. I know it's Tuesday, and he's away for a couple of days. But, if you come back on Saturday, we should be able to make that exchange for you. And the guy's sitting there going, well, I've got the 10 right in my hand. Can't you just make the change? No, I can't. That's maybe an over-exaggerated example, but you, the listener, I'm sure if you think about something like this and it's happening in your business where you ultimately have the control of making a decision that's way down below, you don't need to make those decisions anymore. It's time to set up the process and let it go.
Gosh, I love that. That is beautiful. That's like, I relate it to my business, my agency, building my team, and I try to empower them to be able to make decisions themselves. And but they still come to me. But over time, like I said, processes too, and be able to have a process and reinforcing that, and even challenging them. Once in a while, I ask them to go do things outside of their comfort zones. I know it is. Like you decide. What features should we build here, or what? I've had them do a little R&D. Go see what we should be building here. I'm not just going to tell you. What do you think? But those type of things are, at the lowest level. I love that.
Yeah. So here's the question that if everybody listening takes this one question away today, it will change things for you in your business. And here it is, basically. So when somebody comes and asks you a question that you think they should already know the answer, which happens all the time, right? You're like, and you say to yourself, why don't they just do this? They should know the answer. Here's what you say back to them. This is what you need to memorize. What would you do if I wasn't here today? And do not answer until they give you the answer. Like you have to stay in uncomfortable silence until they give you the answer. Because if you truly think that they know the right answer, because you've asked yourself, like, come on, they've been here 10 years. They know this. They're coming to you because you haven't let them have accountability yet. So if you said to them, hey, if I wasn't here, what would you do? And they said, well, we would call you at home and everything like that. And if that's the wrong answer, then you give them the right answer. But if they gave you the right answer and saying, I just would have changed the 10 for the 11, or the 11 for the 10, or whatever our example was, size 10, then you say, exactly, go ahead. Knock it off. Good job.
Yeah.
You made the decision without me. Use it as a coaching moment. If you need to coach them up because they don't have the right answer, that's a coaching moment. And if they have the right answer, it's a congratulations moment. Next time they'll just do it themselves. The next time they'll just change that 10 for the 11. It's no big deal. They know that you told them it's good. You've assigned and aligned the accountability, and they feel as though they can make the decision because they made the right decision. You gave them the stamp of approval. And next time they come and ask you the same question, you say, remember, what would you do if I wasn't here? And they'd be like, oh, I would just change it. Exactly. Yeah. I don't need to be involved in this decision.
And the next stage of that, the next layer is when they come to you and say, I don't know if we should be doing it that way, Matt. I know that's your, they correct you and say, well, I have that. I think about one of my VAs that's like that. She's been with me for almost 3 years. And she'll be listening to this because she's going to edit this podcast.
Beautiful.
But but she has on numerous occasions, like I'll throw ideas out or something, and then she'll, you know, I don't know, maybe we should do it this other way. I don't know about that. Maybe,
Yeah.
those type of
When
things. And
people
that's,
align with your promise, which is, one of the frameworks I have, come up with your promise, align your products, your process, your people to it so that you can have the right amount of profit. But when people align with your promise and truly understand what it is you do, who you're doing it for, and why you're doing it, they want to make the best decision. And if they see that process is out of whack based on delivering that promise, they're going to let you know if they're the right people.
yeah. And it comes down to just not wanting to micromanage them too. Right?
Yeah.
So I try to, and again, it's some employees or some contractors, they want to run everything by you, but I try to empower them as well to could just go do it, give them as little detail as possible. Just let them do it, let them make mistakes. And that's how we learn. So I want to tell a little story. Actually, I'm going to sneak it in here, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I'm never able to tell this story because it never fits in anywhere. I never think about it, but it's hilarious. So you're in the shoe business, and it made me think of I was as an affiliate. I was sort of in the shoe business for a minute. Back in the 2000s, I was an affiliate marketer. I did a lot of pay-per-click and SEO and all that stuff.
Yeah,
niche marketing, and one of my niches was sandals because I had gone out. Sometimes I would just start with the domain.
Yep.
And somehow, Alexa, stop.
She wants to sell you some shoes.
That rarely happens.
Yeah.
I don't. Aboutsandals.com was available. And I don't know if I did the keyword research before that or I found About Sandals, whatever. Doesn't matter. I got aboutsandals.com. And I was thinking, all right, so I set up this niche site. I create the content for it. I think I had, basically what I would do is I would set up basically a mock store, but all the links would be affiliate links. And we'd go out to, you'd go buy them wherever, right?
Yep.
And back in those days, things worked a little differently. We can get away with a lot more back then. And anyway, so it actually did really well, and promoted it, and I was doing really, really well. And I actually got a letter though, from a company called Sandals Resorts.
Oh yeah. I've been to there.
Yeah. So I actually like a cease and a cease letter,
a lawyer's letter,
and yeah, that was a whole thing. But I just remember it just reminded me that I was in that niche for a while. And I had a lot of fun with it. I think I remember what I ended up having to do.
We've got the best pools.
Right, exactly.
The nicest sand beaches.
I actually really do love sandals. My wife and I have gone to Sandals a bunch of times.
Well, sandals are definitely a big part of my life, not only my holiday life, but my everyday life. It's, I love still being in business, Matt. I mean, not only coaching business owners, but a lot of the things I come up with for our shoe stores and for my own personal life and business life is because I need it myself. The frameworks, the different things that I've come up with to help people through their frustrations. I say turn their frustrations into freedoms. It's like because I've gone through this. I've been there. I've done that, or I've helped other clients go through these, and it's like, we need to develop a tool for that that's going to help them get over the hump, right?
Right. Yeah. So let's just dig into the shoe business since we're talking about the shoe business.
Yeah.
So like when you got into the shoe business, what was your biggest challenge with when you first started? First of all, did you buy into a business? I don't remember.
I did.
This was
I bought into an existing company that was 12 years old, and the owner and his wife were owner operators and were retiring essentially at that time. So I bought I was helping people buy and sell businesses as a business broker. I pitched that business to another person, and in doing that, just like I would do with preparing for any buy and sell sort of arrangement, I really did my homework on this business in order to pitch it to the person that I thought might be interested in it. And he basically said, No, not interested. So we found him another business, which is great. But at the same time, I said to my wife, this is an interesting business. It spits off good revenue. It's in a town that was 5 hours away from where we lived, but in a town that was very similar to ours, smaller town, good community. We're small town people, close to a bigger city, which has everything that we need if we need it. And all of these different things. And we said, you know what, let's buy this business. And so we bought it. And part of the buy sell agreement was that the gentleman who used to own the store, Bill, that he would come to the first 2 trade shows with me and help me through the buying process. Because although I love shoes, I had never bought shoes. I mean, like, other than just going into the store and buying a pair, I've never bought for a business, right? So it's a very different thing. And it was, it took a couple of years really for me to get through that and then to set up the process and then train it for someone else, right? Because that's sort of what I do. And now we're training it for another new person because that person was with me buying for 5 years and has left. So we're kind of adjusting the process a little bit and moving through for this new person. But I would say buying was probably the biggest thing. I mean, I had hired people and fired people, and I was already managing businesses for 13 years before buying this one. So being a business owner wasn't new, but the fact that I moved from service-based businesses, the cleaning company, the bathroom renovation, which was more like, okay, everybody came to the shop in the morning, picked up their trucks, went out and did their stuff on the road every day, to, okay, I've got a box, which is my store, and I'm waiting for customers to come in to buy stuff from me. That was different. That was different because in the service business, when I owned service businesses in the past, I'd always know if we were going to be slow because we had job bookings in advance.
Oh, right.
So if we were going to be slow, I could pick up the phone, call whoever I needed to, stop into some property managers and say, hey, you got some stuff that you need done? You got any vacant units that you want us to knock off? I've got a few openings that I can get them done for you here before the end of the month or something like that, But in retail, you can't really just go out on the road and start pulling people in and saying, hey, get in here and buy some shoes.
That's true.
It doesn't work that way. So it was kind of, that was different for me to understand and sort of manage the fact that we cannot. I mean, yes, you can advertise and do sales and do things to bring people in, but you can't necessarily manage the day like you can in a service business.
So that was a big challenge, is just learning how to kind of think about it differently or come at it and figure out inventory and
scheduling, all sorts of different stuff, like it's just it's a different nut. And, whatever business that the listener here is looking at or maybe contemplating, every business has its own sort of intricacies. And sometimes you don't really think about them that much. You just say, oh, this got to be good business. But sometimes you got to go a layer deeper and think about what might present itself that I'm unfamiliar with, and talk to some people, do some homework, get out in the industry and ask some questions, find the industry associations that may be able to answer some of your questions for you and different things like that. Because, as much as I love being a business owner, business ownership isn't easy. It's not for everyone. There's a reason why everybody isn't a business owner. And I know lots of people that have got into business and it wasn't for them and they left being a business owner. And that's okay too, because you know what? If it isn't for you, then that's okay. You've got to live your own life the way you want to live it. And for those of us that want to be business owners, there's some intricacy around that too. And a lot of the times, at least with the people that I coach, the biggest issue that they deal with is just overwork and overwhelm, and they don't know how to get out of their business and have a normal life.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So you mentioned processes a few times, and this is something near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
Because again, I run an agency and team and all that, but also kind of some of the content on my blog. That's kind of I talk about the intersection between processes and teams and all that. Yeah. That's a pretty important part of, especially if you're going to step away or, not be tied into your business and working 12 hours a day in your business. You have to set up processes so you can pass on these processes to other people. They can learn and watch the ship while you're gone and that type of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So what what can you tell us about processes? I mean,
We could
how does
go
somebody
on
go
for,
about that? Like
yeah,
if you're
we
if you're
could go
starting
on
a
for days
business.
here, but
Yeah, no, I know we
yeah.
could go on for days.
I
Um,
can start by saying I developed an acronym for the word process. And what should a process do? It should prevent recurring overwhelm, clarify, evaluate, systematize, and simplify whatever it is you need to put a process around. So, first thing processes do is they prevent recurring overwhelm. If you do something more than 3 or 4 times, it should have a process.
yeah,
And how do you build it? Well, first you got to clarify what it is. You clarify at the end goal, what is the good, like what do I want the outcome to look like, and what would be a bad result. So you're clarifying the good and the bad. You evaluate what you've got. You systematize it, which is basically listed out in a simple form so that you can simplify the process, because everybody wants to work with a simplified process. They don't want to work with something that's overwhelming, and they a lot of times they just won't. So your goal when you're developing processes is to really, you're going to try and help them prevent recurring overwhelm. You need to clarify what the outcome is, evaluate what you currently are doing so that you can see how you're either going to improve it or change it or whatever the case is, systematize it, which is listing it out, and simplify it to its very core. So when you do that, you come out with something that people can repeat, and you can then align and assign accountability to somebody else because you've built this process that you know works every time, or at least most of the time. And if you get it up to that like 80, 90% stage, then you can feel comfortable in handing it over to somebody else in order to finish this process. Think about the idea that we used with the shoe store in the return. Like doing a return for somebody, flipping a size out for somebody is very simple. So the process, I mean, there's a couple of keystrokes on our point of sale system, and you literally hand it over to them and you say, I'm glad we got you the right size. Like it's not that hard. So as owners, often we make things harder than they are. So we want to take this down. We want to prevent recurring overwhelm, not only for the person, but for our client. Can you imagine the frustration that would be if that client saw the size right there in front of him and knew he couldn't take it until Saturday and this is a Tuesday? Like, come on, right? And your team members frustrated that they can't help that customer too, right?
that's right.
So lay it out. What are the steps? Boom, 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 boom. Simplify it and then communicate it. It's got to be communicated. So everybody learns in a different way, Matt. Some people are very visual. Some people like to read steps and they're checklisters. I need to check it off. There's 6 steps and I'm going to check them off those are the people that put Post-it notes everywhere and all that kind of stuff, right? You probably have them on your team. I mean, we a lot of us do. And then there's other people that don't like to follow systems at all. They learn by doing, right? And it's like, okay, well, I got to take you, if I'm the checklist person, I will take you through, and hold your hand basically and physically train you and do this 4 or 5 times until I know that you've got the checklist down in your head, because I know you're never going to do the checklist. And once I'm at that stage, then I'm good. And other people are like, no, just show me the video, right? In today's day and age of video, it's like, go on the point of sale system, take me through the different windows that I got to go through. And once I see it 2 or 3 times on the video, I'll be good. So think about your process. Once you have your process down, then how are you communicating the process so you can align and assign accountability? And that's what I call the CPA model that I work with my clients a lot. So we want communication, process management, and accountability, because once the process is there, you need to be able to communicate it, right? But you also need to be able to align and assign it to the new owner of that process.
I think one of the things that stands out the most here is the simplification of it, because
Be simple.
I'll give you an example. So I used to do I worked for a company for a number of years as a web developer, and we built WordPress themes, right? And we had built our own. I built my own boilerplate from the ground up, line by line. Built this thing, and then I built this beautiful system to build out custom themes. Well, actually, themes we were selling in a marketplace. But I had every detail. I had all these different phases. I had just checklist, like every page. Okay, I did that page. I did the 404, and I got the post, and I got the page. I check it off. All this stuff, right? And that worked for me beautifully. Like that's the kind of person I am. I want to, I've got a little checklist there. And so years later, I have my own agency, right? Now I still have that checklist. And I'm like, well, I got this checklist. Now all I have to do is give it to my people, give it to my team. And so I remember the first one or a couple times I used it. And I had it at the time we were using Trello, and I had it broken out, and there was you could mark stuff off. And they would get into the project, or like almost done with the project, and nothing was checked off.
Yeah.
This is driving me crazy. Why aren't they checking things off? Don't they, that's driving me crazy. And then eventually I learned, I'm like, it's just, they don't need that. And there's too much detail. There's too much, they just got a general idea. They get it done. They go through it. They don't worry about checking things. So everybody, like you said, everyone's mind's different. Everyone kind of works differently. Like some of my team members, they love video. I'll make them a little bullet list of things, but then I go over it in a video real quick, a screen share or something.
Yeah. We use Loom for that all the time. I mean, it's really cool. Yeah.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. Loom is awesome because like I said, now I have an international team. It really helps out even more because of that, to make sure nothing's lost in translation. But I will, I have an idea of maybe some things that they need to do, some tasks, but then I'm create a quick Loom video and explain it in detail there, and real quick. And but yeah, anyway, but that simplification is so important. Even this podcast. One more example of mine. This podcast, like when we're done with this podcast, I have a process to get it edited, and then I hand that over to somebody. This podcast already lives we use ClickUp. I created a task, and we have a template, and I click the template, and it fills out everything for me. And then I hand that off to somebody. And then there's
we use Trello, same sort of thing. It's like, but having these processes takes the stuff out of our head and gives it to, it puts it in a place where other people can understand it. And that's one of the big problems, Matt, that a lot of small business owners have, is that everything lives in their own noggin. And well, here's another one, right? You've heard it, I'm sure, before. The word assume makes an ass of you and me, right? So if you lay it out, assume makes an ass of you and me. And it does, because we assume as the owners of the business that everybody has our brain and knows exactly what we know. Right. And why aren't they making these calls when we don't even have process? Like, how can we expect them to make decision when we haven't actually laid it out in any sort of formal way? No wonder they're coming to you for the answers all the time.
And I'm willing to bet a lot of business, I mean, you hear the nightmare stories. People like, I just don't understand. I try to outsource. I try to get contract, do things for me, and they just don't get it. Yeah. They just can't get it done. But you have absolutely no process in place to, that's the missing piece.
You've never told them what good looks like. You've never told them what bad looks like. You've never told them really what you truly want, or, given them any sort of guidance as to if they are doing things right or wrong along the way. I mean, it's so, a lot of that kind of stuff is there's a lot of room for improvement in the small businesses around Canada and the US for sure.
Yeah. In the world, probably. No, this is great. So what you do coaching. So that's your main business now.
I spend most of my time coaching these days, and I'm speaking at conferences, and podcasting, and doing all that sort of stuff around simplifying entrepreneurship and that side of my business. And then I'm involved in Shootopia as much as I need to be, but it would be pretty hard for me to speak and coach to these kind of things if I was working 50 hours a week in my shoe business, because that doesn't really bode well for what I coach to. So the idea here is that yes, I'm still the owner of the business, and yes, I'm still involved when I need to be involved. And if somebody wants Thanksgiving weekend off, I'm happy to work Thanksgiving weekend and give my team the time off and that sort of stuff, because, there's give and take in any relationship. And I always want to be supportive of giving my team as much of freedom as they can have, because they give me the freedom that I ask for. And so there's a reciprocal in this sort of stuff, and we live by that at Shootopia. And I think there's a lot of respect around that within our group and family at Shootopia. And from that perspective, we're always looking after each other. And when people need time off, they get time off. And when people need to, put up and just get it done, they do. And, when you run that kind of environment, and that's just the way, and it comes from the new employee right up to the owners. My wife's also an owner in the shoe store, and when she needs to go into work, she'll go into work, and so will I. And I mean, it's just part of it. But at the same time, we don't want to be put on the schedule for 40 hours a week, right?
Right. Yeah. As owners. Yeah, that's not good. One of the great things is you're doing coaching and stuff, and I think one of the great things, if I was going to come to you and get some coaching, is knowing that you have been in business.
Yeah.
You want to learn from people that have been in the trenches,
Yeah.
and have gone through all the ups and downs and know how to structure a business and do all those things.
It's I was just asked the other day by somebody who I've known for quite a while, and she said, "Used to be a business broker. Can you help me get my business ready to sell?" And I'm like, "Sure, I can. I can help you do that. I mean, I'm not licensed anymore to actually put it up and sell it, but I can help you prep it and get ready for sale, because essentially it's the same thing as what we've been talking about here today. Because the time your business is going to be most valuable is when you're least involved."
Yeah.
Because people don't want to buy a business that's directly relative to how much time you're putting in it as the owner, because you're going to leave.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, and I've talked to other agencies that people have sold agencies and stuff, and it's my vision for my business, even though I figure I'll be here for another 20 years.
Yeah,
I love what I do. But at some point when I do exit, I'm going to be in a position where Matt's not needed anymore.
Right. And I think, that when you get to that point, like I would say our shoe stores right now are pretty sellable, because things happen without me.
Right.
And they happen every day without me. So basically, I go in because I want to go in more than I have to go in. And I think that becomes, and it's still spitting off, money and profit. So I think those kind of things are interesting when you look at that.
Well, all right. So it was great getting to know you and your business and what you've all done. I mean, there is so many different directions we could go with all your business.
Save one or two for another episode, maybe.
Absolutely. I would love to have you back. But before we go, can you let our audience know how they can either find you on the World Wide Web? Are you on LinkedIn? Where are you?
Yeah, I kind of live all over these days. But if you Google search Pete Mohr, Mohr, you will find me for sure. I'm on LinkedIn at Pete Mohr, and you can just go to mohr.coach. That's mohr.coach. For my website, and you'll get everything you need there too. And I also have a podcast too. It's called The Business Owner Breakthrough, Matt. And they're solo podcasts, just sort of little 5-10 minute episodes around the stuff that we've been talking about today. Little concepts that hopefully take you from your operator chair to the owner chair where you want to be down the road. And every journey is different. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get there. It's okay. But you have this goal in mind that someday down the road, you don't want to be making every single little decision, right? And you want to have more freedom. That's why you got into business in the first place.
Love it. Me. I want that. I'm going to listen to your podcast.
Sweet.
All right. Thanks a lot, Pete. Until next time.
Been a pleasure. Make it a great day.
That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already, and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. If you want to comment on this episode's page, provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, or inquire about being a guest, please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites,
features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you are interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.